Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's training on home builders, where we look to restore families one referral at a time. My name's Shauna Bolin, as some of you may know, and I am the FFPSA Prevention Consultant for the South Central region through the University of Tennessee Social Work Office of Research and Public Service, or SWORPS for short. My training partner today is Rochelle Summerhill, and she is the program manager for the Home Builders program through Centerstone. Some of you may have worked with her previously with the TIES program. If you've not already, please introduce yourself in the chat. If you want to put your name, role, and how long you've been with your position. We're bringing this training to you today to show the importance of the Home Builders program and why it's important for prevention. The first reason is this region has had a similar program called TIES before, and that was used to help families with substance use concerns. The TIES program is no longer available, but it's been replaced with Home Builders. And Home Builders is very similar to TIES. However, there are some differences, and we want to make sure that everyone has a clear understanding of the program and how it can support the families you all are working with. Another reason this training is important is to show some of the aspects of prevention and how the Home Builders program can assist with prevention of removal as well as reunification with families. This is a service that's offered in Murray, Hickman, Lawrence, Giles, Marshall, Coffee, Franklin, Bedford, and Lincoln counties. Feel free to ask questions in the chat or come off mute as we go through this information. So I will turn it over to Rochelle to give us what we need to know about home builders.
Hi, I'm Rochelle Summerhill. I'm program manager with Home Builders. And I guess I should let you know that I should answer the questions Shauna presented to. So I've been in the field of mental health and substance abuse treatment since 2010, and with TIES/Home Builders specifically this time around since 2019. Some of you guys may have worked with us when we were building strong families back in the day. I'm not even going to try to guess what year that was, but I was with them as well at one point. So been around for a minute or two. So I would like us to interact as much as possible while we're together today. And from the chat, I can tell there's a wide variety of experiences with us, which makes for great conversations and perspectives. Before we dive into primary focus of this evidence-based program, I'd like everyone to drop in the chat if they have heard of Home Builders. And you get extra points if you have made a referral. And I know I've seen some folks. I know Christy Brown knows who we are. Because I frequently get her confused. Charity. Yes, TIES is no more. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be looking at the chat. TIES is no more. I'm going to close the chat out now and focus on this. Okay, so starting with the primary focus on the prevention of unnecessary out-of-home placement of children. So first, we know research shows that children are negatively impacted upon removal in various ways, often causing trauma due to separation from family and disruption of routine. Furthermore, foster placements generally involve the potential for more instability. I actually saw in the news recently that Tennessee children are currently more at risk of out-of-state placement due to a lack of sufficient foster homes in the state, which potentially adds additional problems for these children, their families, and I would imagine financially for the state, just to name a few. But the focus here is on the children and preventing the additional trauma that comes along with many removals. So Home Builders is trauma-informed, family-centered, and focused on keeping children at imminent risk of removal safely in their homes. We need two things for eligibility: imminent risk of removal without Home Builders and parental substance abuse. So we can be in the home starting services within 24 hours of the referral being made and approved. Our therapists have small caseloads to provide the necessary individualized attention that each family needs and deserves. Each therapist can carry 2 families at one time, with the potential of having a third opening as one is getting ready to close. They're in the home roughly 10 hours per week, for 4 weeks, providing intensive therapeutic services to everyone who's willing and able to participate in that home. So if a particular family needs more attention, we can be in the home every day if needed until we can help stabilize the situation. So when I say 10 hours, that can and does vary between families. In all, we're shooting for a minimum of 38 hours in a 4-week intervention. And we can extend that up to 6 weeks with Homebuilder's approval if other needs or safety concerns arise. Another significant detail to note is that this is not a 9-to-5 job or service. We see families in the evenings, early mornings, weekends, holidays, etc. We meet with families around their schedules and attempt to meet with them when tension may be at its highest or when the problems are likely to occur. So, for example, if you have a family that's struggling with truancy, we'll try to schedule at least some sessions early in the morning to see what their morning routines look like and where we can intervene to improve their situation. One of the biggest questions I get is what exactly are we doing when we're in the home? We're addressing whatever you guys tell us is putting the children at risk, is the simplified answer. When asked what we do, I often answer with whatever we can't do, we're going to refer out for. So some of the more common things we've addressed are relapse prevention, parenting education, decision-making skills, and mental health, such as teaching coping skills, getting them scheduled with providers for ongoing treatment, etc. We also provide reunification services in addition to prevention services. So to be eligible for reunification, the children must return to the home within 7 days of referral. They may still be eligible for our program if they just returned home within like the last 2 to 3 days. Many DCS caseworkers in the past have talked about how reassuring it is that there are eyes in the home addressing any issues that arise and keeping them informed of progress and concerns along the way. I've also had current and former DCS workers tell me that this program makes their jobs easier because along with constant eyes in the home, we can also make all the referrals for additional needed services. We will also provide you with the assessment results and service plan for the family. And at the end, we provide you with a detailed service summary that includes closing assessment scores and any ongoing concerns and recommendations for the family.
Rochelle, we had a question in the chat. I answered it, but I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate. They asked us, Homebuilders assist with drug screen?
So we do not. We're not able to do drug screens, unfortunately. Now, if we have a concern that would require us to need to know the results of one, we would probably reach out to you guys first to see if that's something that you could do. Our therapists are supposed to be reaching out to you guys weekly or at any point that they have a concern anyway. So if that were to come up, we would certainly ask you guys if you would be able to run and do one.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So comparison between Homebuilders and ties. So I know that you guys, several of you guys, if not all here, remember the ties program. That ended in actually June of this year, the end of June of this year. I've heard from several people about how they wished we still had the previous program. Ties has done a lot of, I'm biased, of course, but I think we've done a lot of really great work with families over the years. But I want to point out we didn't really get rid of it. We slowly transitioned from an evidence-informed program to what is now an evidence-based program or Homebuilders. And there really are a lot of similarities between the two. Both are grant-funded intensive family preservation services and cover the same 9 counties. Like ties, Homebuilders also requires DCS to keep an open case throughout the intervention. And we need some evidence of parental substance abuse concerns. We also still provide reunification. We're still in the home for a minimum of 8 hours per week for 4 to 6 weeks, but we do shoot for that closer to a minimum of 10 hours per week with Homebuilders, because a minor difference, and we'll get to that in a minute, is that Homebuilders' expectations are the minimum 38 hours over a 4-week period. So it boils down to more like 9.5 hours per week. The biggest similarity is that both programs are tailored to each individual family's needs to effectively address concerns that are putting the children at imminent risk of removal. All right, so you'll notice that with home builders, the risk of removal has to be imminent. That was a little different with ties. Will the children either be removed or placed in either informal or formal placements without home builders, or would the children not be returned home without home builders? We understand that you likely don't make the final decision about removal. So we're often asking, do you plan to petition the court or ask your supervisor for removal without these services? That's how we get to the imminent piece. Reunification is also a little different with home builders. The closer to reunification, the better the chance of being accepted. If you wait until the children have been home 3 weeks to refer, then they may no longer be eligible unless something new is putting them back at risk of removal. Um, as mentioned before, home builders is evidence-based, while ties was evidence-informed. So what that means is that within ties, we used key features found in evidence-based programs or practices that have been proven effective through research and evaluation. But the program itself did not go through the process to be considered evidence-based. Home Builders is evidence-based, meaning it has been tested through research and proven to be effective in achieving its intended outcomes. So in a nutshell, Home Builders has the evidence of effectiveness where ties did not. With home builders, we try to ensure the therapist working with the family lives within 60 minutes of the family. It's sometimes not possible because of our wide coverage area, but we do try to keep them as close to 60 minutes away as we can, so that in the event of a crisis in the middle of the night that the therapist needs to drive out there, they can get there quickly or as quickly as possible. Also, with home builders, services start within 24 hours rather than the 72 hours with ties. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Shauna for a little activity.
Thank you, Rochelle, for all that good information. I hope you guys are paying attention. So this is a little show what you know activity. So the questions will come on the screen and we want to know if it's home builders, ties, or both. So the first one is imminent risk of removal. So if you can drop in the chat which of those you think qualifies. Good job, everybody. Home builders is correct. So remember that with ties, there just had to be a risk, but now with home builders, there has to be that imminent risk of removal, whether it be a custody removal or a non-custodial removal. So the next one is Department of Children's Services involvement. You guys are quick. Both is exactly correct. So the DCS case must remain open so that the program can work with the family. If the case is able to be closed, then that risk piece is no longer there. So the next one is the therapist living within 60 minutes of the family. Good job. Home Builders is correct for that one. So the last one is services start within 72 hours of accepted referral. You guys definitely know your stuff. So ties was correct. Home Builders is different because they open within 24 hours of the accepted referral. So now I'm going to toss it back to Rochelle for a little bit so she can give us some more information on what everyone should expect with their services.
All right, so what a family should expect. So the Tennessee Department of Children's Services informs families of the need for intensive services, explains the risk of removal if they don't participate, gives the family a brief introduction, and then refers to home builders. So letting them know about the risk of removal without participation is a really important piece to remember. Our program is essentially voluntary to the family. So if they tell us to leave and never come back, regardless of how encouraging we try to be, we'll have to close the referral. Of course, we're going to let you know immediately in hopes that you can reiterate the importance of their participation. But our hope is that by you explaining that imminent risk piece ahead of time, we can avoid that altogether. If you have questions about eligibility and openings, you can always reach out to me or Maria prior to talking about services to the family if that's helpful. The assigned therapist would then contact the family and begin services within 24 hours of the accepted referral. The therapist will confirm the intake date and time with you once that's scheduled. The family meets with their therapist for roughly 10 hours of direct service over 4 weeks, with the possibility of extending up to 6 weeks, depending on family needs. So, for example, if we get to week 4 and there's new safety concerns or a new report with the department is called in, we would likely look at extending services to address those things. Sessions are scheduled around the family's schedule and in their home environment. So, of course, we can also meet at other locations in the community as needed, but we really need to be meeting in the family's home as much as possible, since that's generally where the biggest concern is. The therapist immediately begins to address safety concerns that are placing the children at imminent risk of removal. The therapist is available to the family 24/7 to assist with crisis management. If for any reason that therapist is out, there's always a backup. And there's always a backup to the backup. There's definitely systems in place so that they always have somebody to contact in the event of a crisis. The family can expect to participate in both family and individual therapy, as well as develop and address goals to help prevent out-of-home placement. Families are typically referred to additional services such as outpatient therapy, IOP, parenting classes, etc., post Homebuilders to continue addressing concerns if needed. All right, so what should you all expect or DCS expect? So we're going to be asking several questions to determine eligibility initially. So is there a parental substance abuse concern with the custodial parent or caregiver? Will you be petitioning the court for removal or asking your supervisor for out-of-home placement without services? What would happen if Homebuilders was not available to work with this family? Other potential questions we might ask include, would less intensive services meet the family's needs or successfully address safety concerns? Are there any issues with seeing the family within the 24 hours? How are the children affected by the problems in the home? If you aren't sure whether or not a family is eligible, again, you can always reach out to us literally 24/7 and you don't have to give us any identifying information up front. You can just kind of run a scenario by us and we'll be glad to tell you if it sounds like it would be eligible or not. The next step is to have the referral screened by Homebuilder staff or our consultant and the DCS funding source. If it's determined to be eligible, me or Maria will reach back out to you to let you know, gather some more information like demographics, TFAX numbers, things like that, then assign the referral to a therapist. If it's not eligible, we'll also let you know that, and I always try to assist with any other possible resources if needed. Once assigned to a therapist, that therapist will contact the family immediately, making every effort to see the family the same day. We'd love to see them the same day, if at all possible, or within 24 hours at the latest. If there's any issues with that, the therapist is going to reach out to you to see if you can't help us make that contact. Within the first week, the therapist works on intake assessment using the NICFAS and addressing immediate safety concerns. So assessment results, along with the service plan that outlines goals that the family is going to work on, will be sent to the DCS worker upon completion. And the therapist will also provide the worker with updates weekly and or as needed. At the end of the intervention, the therapist completes the NICFAS assessment again, and results, ongoing concerns, progress made, and any other recommendations will be provided to the DCS worker in a service summary within a week of closure. As mentioned before, we currently have a grant that pays for our services. However, there are some additional things we will need in the future for Title IV funding. So I'm going to turn it back over to Shauna so she can talk briefly about that and present a couple case studies to you guys.
All right, so as most of you guys are already familiar with that Title IV-E funding eligibility, I'm going to kind of run back over it again just briefly. As you said, right now they don't require all of these steps to be done before the program can get started. However, in the future that may change. So in TFAX, whenever you are going to use that Title IV-E funding to pay for the service, your FAST assessment or a CANS, if you are foster care, or if the child is in custody, those have to show the high intensity or high need. You can also trigger that in a child and family team meeting, and that can be for any discipline, CPS, FSW, JJ, any of those avenues can get that done in a CFTM setting. And also an enactment of an IPA or an immediate protection agreement can also trigger that Title IV-E eligibility. The NCPP or your non-custodial permanency plan must be developed with a need record identifying the appropriate family first service and any other relevant service that supports the family preservation and reduces the risk of harm and abuse. If a case has been open for 30 days, there's supposed to be a permanency plan completed. If there's a need of substance use for that custodial parent, or if that parent has a history of substance use, home builders could possibly be helpful for the family. And that also gives extra eyes and ears in the home almost every day. And they can help assist the family with multiple things, as Rochelle stated earlier. So this first case scenario I'm going to go over is a family that consisted of a mom and her 3-week-old son. They were referred to home builders by DCS due to the risk of removal under Eli's law. The mom had an open case with her other 3 children already placed outside of the home. Positive for THC at birth. So DCS reported the mom had a total of 10 reports since 2017. 5 of those were known to be substantiated since 2019 with her other children. And those other kiddos were placed with a grandmother previously due to drug exposure and environmental neglect. So this current report is for the new baby. According to DCS, she was unable to locate, the case manager was unable to locate mom until the day of the home builder's referral due to a change in housing and a new phone number. The mom demonstrated a pattern of erratic behavior, and that caused concern for her stability financially, socially, and also with relapse prevention. Additionally, DCS stated that mom has challenges with alcohol, which leads to violent behavior. She had charges of domestic violence, indecent exposure, and assaulting a police officer. Per DCS, the mom also is estranged from her family, so she's socially isolated and needed assistance with safe sleep for the new baby. DCS added that the mom is currently on maternity leave and there's concern about being able to afford housing, and she did not have reliable transportation at the time. DCS also stated that without home builders, the baby's needs would be reevaluated. At this time, her supervisor and the attorney requested home builders to prevent removal due to Eli's law. If removed, the baby would be placed with the paternal grandparents who was caring for the other kiddos. In that scenario, what made it a good referral for home builders was really all of it. The family had parental substance use history, recent history, and so the baby being born positive was also the imminent risk piece. Due to that and the intensity of the needs, also Eli's law, this was easy to get approved through home builders. The outcome of this case, once they completed home builders, was that mom regained custody of her other 3 children during the 3rd week of the intervention and maintained custody of the baby at the time of closure. So this one was a success story while working with the Homebuilders program. So we'll go over one more. So case scenario number 2, the family consists of a dad and his 12-year-old daughter. They were referred to Homebuilders by DCS due to concerns of the family needing services. The child had missed 21 days of school, so truancy had been filed with the court, and the child reported marijuana use as recent as 10 days ago, as well as a past use of alcohol. There was no water or electricity in the home. The dad wasn't working. The home was cluttered with clothes, boxes, trash, and other various items. The dad had also tested positive for marijuana on a drug screen. DCS had reported that the child's mother had been incarcerated for several months, and the family had been involved with DCS off and on since 2013, with the dad having a history of drug use. The child had also been removed from her parents previously from February until August of 2020. DCS had stated that without the Homebuilders program, the child would likely be removed again from her father. So what made this scenario, or what made it be a good referral for the Homebuilders program was parental drug use history, currently testing positive for THC, but the imminent risk of removal was primarily because of the environmental concerns, the child's substance use, and truancy. So there was a lot of issues built up within the family, which increased the risk of removal significantly. The outcome for this one, when they completed Homebuilders, the child had been removed from the father due to her continuing to test positive for substances. Very little progress had been made to the house, and the child still struggled with truancy. The dad did get a job and made some improvements on the house. Homebuilders had helped pay for electricity to be turned back on, and there was some improvements, but it wasn't enough to make a big difference. So they did end up having to remove that kiddo from him. So we're not guaranteeing that this program will fix all the issues within the home. However, since it's an evidence-based program, there are huge possibilities that it can assist the family with the needs at the time. So UT SWORPS prevention director, myself, and the prevention consultant out of Cumberland recently reviewed 33 cases of involving children who entered DCS custody, with the listed reason being caretaker substance use. From the review, we wanted to share some of the findings that we've seen and some potential missed opportunities for prevention work. Remember that under the Family First Prevention Service Act, states can receive that Title IV-E funding for keeping children in their home when it's safe to do that. So there was 33 cases reviewed. 7 of those may have been appropriate referrals for Homebuilders. Within those 7 cases, there were 12 children that ultimately entered foster care. 1 case did contain a FAST and an NCPP that addressed the parental substance use, parenting needs, and some other mental health concerns for one of the parents. In this case, it could have likely been served through the Homebuilders program. It was the initial involvement for the family with DCS, and the substance use was THC. Parents were in agreement to work services, and the father even had asked if there was a service available that was less intensive than a rehab facility. 5 of those cases did not have a FAST that reflected an imminent intervention recommended or a high need or risk, despite there being concerns in the family home. In these situations, there were some things scored, however, they weren't scored at a level that generated a need. For example, there were needs of past substance use, which we now know is a criteria that would make a family eligible for Homebuilders. There were some cases that families were experiencing financial struggles, environmental concerns, and these concerns were not noted as part of the FAST assessment. 5 cases did not contain an NCPP, despite cases being open beyond the 30 days. 1 case, the agency filed a petition for custody within 2 weeks of the agency being involved, so there wasn't an NCPP required. This becomes relevant when looking at the requirements to trigger those state funding services. A faster CFTM has to note that imminent risk, immediate intervention required or recommended. Additionally, as discussed previously, those non-custodial cases, if the goal is for the parent to reunify with the children, then Homebuilders would still be a possible evidence-based service to refer to them. There were also 2 cases that did not contain an NCPP or a FAST with actionable items. However, it was noted that parenting classes were provided. So I'm going to let Rochelle talk to us about how to make a referral for Homebuilders.
Yes. Okay. So Maria Riddle, I've already mentioned her once, but I realized I didn't explain who she was. So Maria Riddle is our program supervisor. Many of you may have already had some contact with her. You can reach out to either of us at any time to complete the referral for Homebuilders. And you can see our email addresses and phone numbers are on the screen there. We also work closely with Amber Reeves, the program specialist with DCS, so you can reach out to her with any questions about the referral process, funding, and information about openings. I actually send her an email roughly once a week when we have openings that she forwards to the entire South Central region. That email generally states how many openings we have at that time and the process for referrals. We also have a short online referral form that will alert Maria and me to reach out to you to discuss eligibility information and collect other details. And that link's also available there on the slide. As always, we're open to conversations about how we can make this process easier for you. So please reach out at any time if you have any thoughts, suggestions, or any issues with making a referral. We don't want our referral process to be the barrier that's keeping you from making it. You know what I mean? So feel free to reach out and we can brainstorm some things. I also wanted to mention that someone from our team can be available to come to court or attend DCS meetings with the family to take referrals and or open services at that time. So if you have a family you think may be placed in custody in court, feel free to call one of us. If we have someone available and have an opening, we can come into court and advocate for Homebuilder services and potentially even open services before they leave the courtroom. I know I've already said it before, but we are available 24/7. So if you're at a family's home or on the way to a family's home on a Saturday night at 8 p.m. for a possible removal, step outside, call one of us first. We'll be glad to talk through the case with you and even send a therapist to the home with you if needed to get things going before you leave, as long as we have an opening. And as always, I truly appreciate the hard work that you all do every day to help keep our children safe.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you have any questions before we wrap things up, please either put them in the chat or come off mute so we can have those answered for you all. Also, as I said before, I'm the prevention consultant for our region. So if you have questions in the future, please reach out and I'll be happy to either answer those or connect you with Rochelle or Maria if needed.
And just a little housekeeping, if you would like to get training credit for your time today, please click that link that I just put in the chat box. Also, I'm going to take the screen and share there is a QR code. So you can also use your phone if you would like to do that. You have options. So we'd like to give you training credit. So just let me know if you have any trouble with that link. And we still have a few minutes for questions if anyone has any more questions for our guest speakers. And after you complete the link, you're free to go and or ask any other questions.
Or we can stay on and you can chat with me about a referral.
Yeah. We can make our time work.